Hi guys, Mimi G here and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be working on a sew along for one of my summer simplicity patterns, 3128, which is this adorable dress in 2 lengths. So let's get started.
All right guys, so today we're going to be working on my Simplicity 3128 pattern. It's this adorable summer dress. It comes in 2 lengths. Today I'm going to be sewing the short version. There is no difference on how to construct the dress outside of one is longer than the other. So if you want to do the short version, you'll just cut that pattern piece at the cut line for this view. Now on the back of the pattern envelope, we always have a list of suggested fabrics: chambray, cotton blends, gabardine, lightweight denim, linen. I used a linen for the photos of the pattern envelope, but today I'm actually using a rayon. It also gives you a list of notions that you're going to need, like 5/8" buttons, and you'll need 8 for view A, the short one, or 10 for view B. Okay, so let's go over the pattern pieces you're going to need to cut. So you're going to cut pattern piece number 4. This is our front facing. You're going to be cutting 2 of fabric and also 2 of interfacing. You're going to cut pattern piece number 2. This is the strap, and you're going to cut 2. We have pattern piece number 1. This is our bodice front, and you're going to cut 2. We have pattern piece number 16. This is our back facing. You're going to cut 1 on the fold, and you're going to cut 1 of interfacing, also on the fold. Then we have pattern piece number 5. This is the back, and you're going to cut 1 on the fold. Make sure that you transfer your dart. And then, of course, we have pattern piece number 3, which is the front. You're going to cut 2 and also make sure to transfer your dart. The last pattern piece you don't cut anything out of. This is just your buttonhole guide that you will use to properly place your buttons in the correct place. Now, once you have everything cut and all of your pieces interfaced, we can start to sew. All right, guys, the first thing I want you to do before we get started is to go ahead and make your darts. Okay, so you're going to make your 2 darts in the back. You're also going to make the 2 darts in the front. And then we're going to set all of this aside, and we're going to grab our front piece. Now, once you have your front bodice piece, what we're going to do is we're going to gather the bottom. So we'll just work with one at a time. You're going to do the same exact thing to the other one. So you should have transferred your markings. We're going to go ahead and make 2 rows of gathering stitches along the bottom. So go ahead and do your gathering stitches, and then we're going to finish off our armhole and our front. So go ahead and do your gathering rows first. Do them on both your bodice front pieces. Okay, so once you've done your 2 rows of gathering stitches, we're just going to let that be for a second. The next step for us is to turn under the allowance on the front of our bodice and also on the armhole. So the easiest way to do a nice clean double fold is I give myself a stitching line at 5/8 of an inch, both on the front and also on the armhole. And then using my iron, I'm going to use that stitching guide to press evenly 5/8 of an inch. Once that's pressed, I can then meet the cut edge to the pressed edge and then double fold, right? And then I can have a nice clean stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, once you do your second row, right, when you fold and then press and then fold again, you're going to go ahead and pin it depending on your fabric, right? If your fabric stays put, like if you're using a cotton or a linen, then you probably won't even need the pins, honestly, once you press it. But mine is a rayon, so it's not going to quite stay. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin the double fold in place. Just like this. You're going to do your other armhole the same way. And then you're also going to do the same thing for the center front. Okay, now we're going to head to the sewing machine, and you're going to stitch close to the edge. You're going to do the same exact thing for your other front bodice piece. All right, so now that we have done the armhole finish and the center front finish, we need to create the casing for the top. So you're going to turn under 3/4 of an inch. Now, you could either just serge the raw edge and then press under that 3/4 of an inch, Or you can press the 3/4 of an inch and then fold in that 1/4 inch and stitch along the pressed edge, sort of like we did here. Now my rayon is a little kind of slippery and it doesn't press all that well, so doing a 1/4 inch, and I'm just gonna go ahead and serge and then turn under that 3/4 of an inch. So if you need to measure the 3/4 of an inch and give yourself a stitching guide, which is what I always do, I suggest doing that. Press and then stitch close to that edge. And you're gonna do the same thing for both of our front bodice pieces. All right, so as you can see, I went ahead, gave myself a 3/4 of an inch stitching line. I pressed and then pinned in place. If you decided to turn under that 1/4 of an inch, right, my serger does a 1/4 of an inch, so then you would be stitching right on this press turned edge. Because I only serged and I'm not turning under that 1/4 of an inch, I'm gonna stitch at the very top of my serger because that's a 1/4 of an inch, which will give me that 1/2 inch casing that I need. So you're gonna go ahead and do this for both your bodice fronts and then go ahead and stitch. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and attach the top bodice part to our dress. Okay, so I want you to grab either your 2 left pieces for your bodice and your dress, or right, it doesn't matter. You're gonna do the same exact thing for both sides. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna go ahead and pull my gathering stitches. Okay, now I'm just gonna measure really quick. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and pin nearing the armhole first. And align any notches, obviously, that you see. Okay, the center front of the little booby part is gonna hit right where that notch is. So I'm gonna place that there and pin. And then if you need to gather more or less to make it fit, go ahead. Go ahead and distribute so that your gathers are even. Okay, once they're even, you can go ahead and continue pinning. You're gonna pin your other top bodice to the dress the same exact way. And then just head to your sewing machine and using a straight stitch, you're just gonna stitch both of these together. Again, your seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch. This is what it looks like when it's up. You're gonna bring it back down, and now we're gonna go ahead and get our facing. I went ahead and finished serging the edge of my facing. Now we're gonna go ahead, place it right sides facing and pin. You wanna make sure that the flounce, that is the top part of our bodice, is out of the way. You don't wanna get that caught inside the facing. Now go ahead and continue pinning until the entire thing is pinned on. Now we're not going to worry about the top because first we need to stitch the front, and then we're going to go ahead and understitch. Then we'll go back, pin and sew the top. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and trim some of this off. Now you're going to turn that corner right side out. You're going to give this a press, and you're going to do the same exact thing with your other front. Okay, now that you have both fronts done, you want to tack down the side facing to the side seam. Go ahead and grab your back pieces and make sure your darts are done. Then we're going to go ahead and grab our straps. You have two. You're going to fold them right sides facing, and you're going to go ahead and sew using 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. You're going to stitch all the way down and use pins if you need to pin this together. And then you also want to make sure that you close off one short end. Now we're going to go ahead and turn our strap right side out. You're going to do your other strap the same exact way. Now we're going to go ahead and place our strap exactly where our dart lines are and pin. Now head to your sewing machine and you're just going to go ahead and stitch across. Let's go ahead and place our front over our back, right sides facing, and we're going to pin our side seams. You have notches on that side seam that you want to make sure you're aligning. The back is going to extend. Go ahead and pin your entire side seam. We have that little extra space at the top from the back because we still need to attach our back facing. Go ahead and do your other side seam the same way. Okay, now you're just going to adjust. You're going to make sure to place your back facing over the back, right sides facing, and go ahead and pin this in place. Make sure that you don't pin or catch any of the front bodice. Now stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. I went ahead and also understitched. So you want to make sure that you fold everything back onto itself. You're creating a little sandwich here, making sure that your side seams are flat, and you're going to go ahead and pin your facing down. Once you have both your facings pinned, you're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, we're going to go ahead and trim our corners. You're going to do that to both of your corners. Then we're going to turn our back facing right side out. Again, make sure to poke out those corners. Now you have a clean back and front facing. Okay, we're going to go ahead and grab a safety pin. You're going to put it through the finished end of one tie, and you're going to go in through the side that's closest to your armhole. You're going to work your way out the front. You're going to repeat the process with the other strap. Now this is a good time for you to try on your dress. After you do that and adjust how you want the bust to fit, I've gone ahead and pinned so that I don't have to make that adjustment every time I put the dress on. Then I'm just going to tack both of those down. Now all we have left to do is to do our hem. So you're going to fold it so that the facing part is right side facing. We're going to go ahead and pin that in place. Now we're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, but as usual, I'm going to give myself a stitching guide. So I'm going to do that all the way through so that I can easily press up that 5/8 of an inch and then fold again. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and trim the corner and poke it out. And then using my iron, I'm going to go ahead and press according to my stitching guide. Once I press the entire hem, I'm going to bring the cut end to the pressed end to create the second row. And then I'm going to pin that in place so that we can get a nice finished narrow hem. Then we're going to stitch close to the edge. The only thing left for you to do is to take your buttonhole guide. You're going to place it on the right side and you're going to transfer your markings so that you know exactly where to make your buttonholes. And then follow the instructions for your specific machine, how to make your buttonholes, attach your buttons, and you are all done.
As usual, I hope you guys enjoyed this so long. Make sure and follow me on Instagram if you're not following already at Mimi G Style so I can see all of your amazing makes. Until next time, peace.